I'm going to be doing some more on the horn bow, but first I want to double check the effect of the things I've done already. It's always a mistake to change too many things at once, and also not to document what you're doing, else you just totally lose track of where you are and what's happening. The bow, it looks alright, you know, on the board like this, but as you draw it, the limbs twist over and they move to that side, they go that way. So what I've done is I've relieved this side of this lever, mostly at the tip, and that might help some of the initial force that's pulling it across. But you'll notice if you look at this side, you can see this tip is actually pressing against the backboard anyway, or virtually touching it, so maybe that needs shaving away. I've removed the leather pad off the other tip. Now the problem is all the information is very vague and woolly. You know, all corrections should be made with heat and pressure. Yeah, but how much heat and how much pressure and applied to where? And they tell you useful things like, well, you shouldn't apply heat to this main bending section because you can cause it to take some set. Well, that's glaringly obvious, because making it take set is what you're trying to do. You're trying to make it take set in a direction to counteract whatever the error is. But then someone said, well, yeah, but this area is too stiff to do much with anyway, so you can't correct it there. Well, where can you correct it? And then they say, oh, well, you can correct it by scraping away at horn or sinew or what have you. Well, I've scraped away, I've removed sinew there, I've removed so much sinew I've actually gone through the wood. Now the limbs themselves seem to have a slight sideways bend, you know, this way. It should be dead straight along the board. But I haven't got that much width to play with. And so I don't know if you can see it, if you peer down there, you see we've got a bit of a gap here. It's very difficult to document any of this, because the real problem, of course, is you haven't got a straight reference edge to work from. The thing's bending in all directions. It's a lot different when it's braced to when it's not braced. It's very hard to get a good clean reference. So what I'm going to do is string it, just double check that it does what I think it's doing. See if having removed wood there improves the matter at all. And then I intend to clamp it up and try and shift it with some heat and pressure and swearing at it, that sort of thing. Right, there it is strung, and you can see it's pretty dire. It's going right across, bending sideways there, something wicked. So I'm trying to hold it in line this way. So yeah, it is bending the way I thought it was. It's all very confusing because it's now up the other way to how it was on the bracing jig. You can see it is bending towards the side I was trying to indicate. Removing wood this side, I was trying to pull the string across to here to force it back this way. But yeah, it looks like it's out of alignment by about an inch or so. Yes, offering it up to the jig, my clamping jig, which is just a couple of bits of 4x2 or whatever, really shows the problem. You can see we're running fairly nicely along here, but when we get to here, you've got a big gap there, and then this comes across and touches the side there. That looks reasonable. But you look at that, and it's just bent across sideways, sort of in this region. You can see where I've tried to correct the lever by pulling it across. Yeah. Right, clamping it up in the jig is really showing the problems now. I've got it held off the base of the jig with just a little bit of this thin plywood, another bit on top so I don't damage the sinew. But I've found I've had to space it away from this back wall with a similar bit of ply, because if I didn't, this tip here was under tension pressing against this face. So you can see now as we look down it, that far limb is spaced away from the jig pretty much correctly by about the width of the plywood. Rather a large gap there. There's the grip. We come back this side. I'll turn round, and you can now see it bends right across and touches here. So this limb needs to shift across substantially, or conversely, if I put a clamp across here and push the centre that way, it will pivot against this point. Centre going that way will pull this side outwards. But of course, with any of that, there's the risk of damaging the joints that are in the core, where the core meets the grip. That's one bit of wood. The main limbs are two other bits of wood, and you've got another splice joint here. So whatever I do, I've got to try and take it gently, but that gives a better idea of the magnitude of the problem.